Now let's talk about debugging. It's not unusual for a lot of developers, probably never happens to you, but it does to myself and a few others, that the code we write doesn't run properly. It generates errors, or worse yet, it generates results without throwing errors. Now what we're talking about here with debugging is when we have an error that's unhandled, meaning that we didn't catch it in a try-catch statement, then it's going to cause the program to break. And at that point, it automatically throws us into debug mode, and we can step through our code and kind of work with our code in a pseudo-running environment to correct it. Now, Visual Studio 2008 is what's providing this functionality. This really isn't a C# functionality, but since you're going to be programming C# in a Visual Studio 2008 environment, then you need to be aware of how all this works. There's a couple of things I want you to be aware of, although you'll probably not use them, but you could get into situations where you need to. First of all, if you go up to Tools and you go down to Options, you will notice that there is a debugging section in Options, and I won't read all this to you, but you can tell Visual Studio how to deal with some of the debugging aspects. General, Edit, and Continue, which is enabled by default. We'll talk about that later in a different video. Just-in-time, native, and symbols, and so forth. Now, I'll cancel that. Also, if you go up to Debug and come down and choose Exceptions, a lot of people don't even know this is here, but notice we can determine whether we want the program to break any time one of these errors is just thrown or is not user handled, or break when it's user handled. Okay, so if it's user handled, it will throw us into break mode. If we tell it when it's thrown, then it doesn't matter if we've user handled it or not, it's going to break. And so anyway, leave these alone for the most part, but you can go adjust the behavior on this, okay, and that's how you would do it. But break mode, and I'm going to throw this into break mode and show you what I'm talking about. Break mode is when an error happens in our program that will prevent the program from running properly, and so Visual Studio will basically halt application and show us what line is the problem. Notice in this I have loaded up a solution called VTC Debugging, and this will be included in your working files. It is, by the way, a copy of the VTC list program with these 4 lines added, and we'll use this through this series of videos on debugging. But I'm doing a classic divide by zero error here. I've created 3 variables, A, B, and C, and I've set them equal to 0 for A, 1 for B, and 0 for C, and I'm going to set A equal to B divided by C, which is 1 divided by 0. Now the compiler won't catch this because it doesn't know the variable values until runtime happens. And so this is a good example of the debug situation. So I run my application, and you're going to notice that when I click on the button, everything looks good. My program appears to be running. Then when I click this, there's this uncomfortable pause, and notice I have gone into break mode. You'll also notice that it is pointing to the line, and it has turned it yellow, and you see this little arrow out here, but it's turned it yellow and it's telling me here's where the problem is, and it will try to identify the problem. And you'll notice this one says divide by arrow exception was unhandled. Now it's going to try to help me out, but be warned, you already know this, sometimes the error that it detects is not what the problem is, right? It's just its best guess, and so you'll have to do some investigation. First of all, there are a number of hyperlinks. If I click this, it'll take me out to online and so forth if I have that set up. I'm not going to pursue that right now. There's general help, and that'll take me out, okay? So however, if I have MSDN installed, or I can go to online help, or I can go out online and search for more help, and I will leave that alone for now. Under Actions, I can view detail. Now I can get more information than I ever wanted to know about why my app went into break mode, what the error was, and what the conditions surrounding it. It's clearly saying that I attempted to divide by 0, but notice it starts to show me all kinds of information about my application and its execution state. And that could be helpful at times when I just can't determine what the error is. Now, one of the cool ones here is that I can copy the exception detail to the clipboard, which means I can paste it in Notepad or Word, print it out, email it to somebody, get some help, and so forth. So at this point, I'm in break mode. And what Visual Studio is doing is saying, okay, dude, you got a problem. It looks to me like it's right here. And I want to give you a chance to fix this problem or correct the problem. Now notice, once I go into break mode, I can put the mouse over the top of any variable, and it will give me information about that variable. This is called a data tip. And it's telling me that as of right now, the integer a, the variable, is worth 0, b is worth 1, and c is 0. Okay, and if I mouse over them here, I get the same thing, and I should be able to deduce what's going on. But notice as you move over a lot of these variables, you will notice that it will give you all kinds of information about what's going on with the program. And that is the variable at this point in time, not the value of the variable on this line when the program ran, but the value of this variable at this point in time when this break occurred. Now, if I clear this, I am still in break mode, and to leave break mode, I need to look at my debugging toolbar up here, which we'll talk about later, and I want to click on Stop Debugging, or I can click to continue. Now, if I go up here to, if I don't see this particular toolbar, I can go to View and go to Toolbars, and I can turn on the Debug tool so that I can see it. So that's general debugging. And then next video we'll talk about edit and continue and show you some of the tips and tricks about debugging.